the Terrifying Lies podcast, with music and stories by Craig Nybo. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Terrifying Lies podcast. I'm your host, Craig Nybo. It's hard to believe it, but we have once again come to the end. Today's episode marks the conclusion of Season 4. We've spent a lot of time together, you and I, over these 13 episodes. We've infiltrated the San Fernando Annex to recon and rescue survivors of a virus called Red Ring that causes insanity and an insatiable hunger for human flesh. While there, we worked out a few math problems, including calculating the volume needed to convert a Union 76 gas station sphere into a napalm bomb. We headed across the ocean to the coast of Iceland, where we dug up an ancient longboat, along with a curse that brought phantoms to the surface. We've scored 13 new songs, 10 of them going on to a new album called Red Annex. Just imagine all the work we've done, and all the work that still could be accomplished. Here's the best news. We have yet one more story to go. For the season finale, I present the conclusion of Long Night of the Draugr, a designer nightmare where I conduct you through a scary adventure. If you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, I encourage you to go back and tune in. Otherwise, you might find yourself a bit alone in the dark. To catch you up, you and your intrepid crew of archaeologists have breached an ancient curse that has brought the voices of the long dead out of the earth. Something is brewing as you hear war horns on the horizon. Do you have what it takes to recover your relics and overcome the paranormal forces about to fall on the little village where you've set up your operations? You'll have to listen to find out. I now give you Long Night of the Draugr, the conclusion. Stick around afterward for the song and a bit of commentary. Behind you, Robin gasps. She stands in front of the Hummer. Even out in the open, the fog is so evasive that you have a hard time making out more than her silhouette in the lemon glow of the Hummer's headlights. You move to her. She holds a hand over her mouth, eyes wide. As you approach, she points down at the hood of the Hummer. What you see there causes a dryness to spread through your mouth. The Hummer idles, giving off a rhythmic pulse of exhaust fumes. Randall Collier lies face down and spread eagle on the hood. Someone has used a sharp instrument to cut through the flesh and ribs along the sides of his spine. Through the two slits, the rough-handed surgeon reached into the body cavity and drew out his lungs. The two organs lie spanned out like wings over his lats. The artifacts are gone, Mendoza says, looking through the broken glass of the rear hatch. He walks around to join you. He looks down at Randall's lifeless body and holds his stomach, trying to control his reflex. He loses the battle and vomits. It's the Blood Eagle, Robin says. A Viking ritual execution. The span lungs are supposed to be wings. We need to get him back to town, you say. The conch shell resounds, cutting through the fog, only this time the drone seems closer. You all turn in the direction of the bleat and catch a dance of silhouettes breaking in the fog. Mendoza grabs the Hummer's antenna and squeezes so hard that his knuckles go white. Robin sweeps a sleeve over her forehead, wiping away an imaginary sheen of sweat. You back up a pair of steps before you realize that you're still holding the 8mm. The shadows move closer. You recognize them as men, approaching in a kind of skirmish line. As they near you, details fade into view. They have weapons, swords, pikes, and shields. They move in shaky, unsure strides, wearing the same centuries decrepit armor and worm-ridden fabric you saw back at the longboat mass grave. You aim the 8mm at the tallest of the figures. One of them raises a ram's horn to his lips and blows. The long tone of the bleat pushes a chill into your bones. You recognize the tallest of the figures as they move into the yellow headlamp light. He's the mummified chieftain from the mass grave, his parchment-like skin sunken against his skull, his red beard jutting in worm-eaten strands from his chin. He holds the longsword you pried from his dead hands earlier that night. He wears the diadem you packaged for Sonia and sent with Randall in the back of the Hummer. You squeeze off 4 rounds. Not having much experience with guns, you can't be sure you hit the chieftain. You fire again. This time the chieftain stutters off to one side. "Get in the Hummer, now," you say. You don't have to ask twice. You, Robin, and Mendoza get into the big vehicle. The Vikings reach the Hummer, swords drawn, just as you slam the door. Before you can shift into reverse, they attack, raising their swords and bringing them down, cutting into the metal with arching blows. One of the creatures hacks the antenna off. Another draws a dagger, flips it around, pommel up, and rams it into the passenger's side window. Glass shatters, cascading all around Robin. She screams and pushes away from the Viking, pawing on Mendoza's arm and kicking the creature as it reaches inside to slash at her. You hit the gas and the Hummer chirps backwards. Randall's body slides off the hood and thunks on the pavement, leaving a smear of blood on the metal. The dagger-wielding Viking hangs on, head and shoulders inside the vehicle, legs dragging on the pavement. He slashes at Robin, opening a few glancing cuts on her calves and ankles. Robin clamors at Mendoza, scratching and screaming. You aim over the seat at the creature and fire. A hole opens in its head. It stops slashing and issues a dry hiss, either in pain or anger. Robin regains enough presence of mind to aim a final kick. She puts both feet together and launches the Viking with a double blow. The creature loses its purchase and falls to the street. You watch its body roll to a stop on the road. With what you think is enough space between you and the Vikings, you stop the Hummer and use a 3-point turn to aim toward town. "They're coming," Mendoza says. You glance at the rearview mirror. Not only are they coming, they're coming fast. The creatures somehow use the curling tendrils of fog as transportation. They vanish in billows of mist and reappear in a closer roil of the stuff. You ram the accelerator down and shoot toward town. The Hummer's heater can't keep up with the frozen air coming through the broken window. All 3 of you shiver. "What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?" Robin says. You fear that panic has driven its icy claws into her. "You need to take slow, measured breaths," you say. Mendoza puts an arm around her. With a few soothing words, he calms her down. "I'm calling Rurik." You draw out your cell phone and dial. The phone rings twice before Rurik picks it up.
"Husavik police,"
he says. "Rurik, this is the archaeological team. We're in trouble."
"I should say you are in trouble. I told you not to leave the Vic. I need you to get back here right away."
"One of our team is dead."
"What?"
"Something has happened. I can't explain it. At first I thought it was protesters, but something's after us."
"Calm down. Where is your associate?"
"He's lying on the highway about an hour's drive out of town."
"Stay with him. I'll send an emergency crew."
"No, don't send an emergency crew. I'm trying to tell you. They're out there and they want to kill."
"Who is out there?"
"I can't explain."
"Come to the Vic, and we can talk it over. I have several ministry police officers here. We'll get to the bottom of this."
"We're on our way," you say. The long drive proceeds in silence. Mendoza manages to rescue some cardboard from the back of the Hummer and partially cover the broken-out window, but the cold air continues to seep through. When you and your team enter the Vic, you see Rurik and 5 other police officers wearing federal uniforms sitting at one of the tables. Some of them have ordered food. You, Mendoza, and Robin ignore them and head straight to the hearth to warm your hands and soak in the heat. Rurik says something to the other officers and joins you at the fire. "I have to warn you. I'm not here to help you. I need answers." "How's the old man?" you ask. Fingier is stable for the moment. For whatever insane reason, he's decided not to press charges. He doesn't want me to lock you up. He claims that you will taste the vengeance of the Draugr. Rurik scoffs at the superstitious belief. If Draugr are homicidal Viking ghosts, then Fingier is telling the truth. I've seen them. They killed my friend. The Draugr is only a myth. I think you will find blaming your troubles on fairies is a flimsy defense. I'm telling you, they killed my friend, and they're on their way here. The Draugr is not a myth, Kala says. She's been wiping down a table within earshot. She drops her bar towel and turns toward Rurik. If they are on their way here, there is only one way to stop them. Rurik throws his hands up in exasperation. You are telling me that we are about to be attacked by homicidal ghost Vikings? Excuse me? One of the other officers raises a finger. What are you talking about? You don't know the old vase, Kala says, clutching her Yggdrasil pendant. You must have stolen from the grave. She aims her words at you, like a weapon. We did no such thing, you say. We uncovered several artifacts earlier today, but we took nothing. If you took nothing, the Draugr would not come for you. Their purpose is to guard their treasure. It is all they care about. If you return what you have taken, they will return to their place of rest. We didn't take anything, you insist. Robin tugs on your elbow and shoots you a narrow stare. You keep your eyes on Kala. That isn't true, Robin says, unwilling to allow you to perpetuate the lie. We took 5 artifacts from the site. Kala sneers at you and issues a low growl. You don't have permission to take artifacts until the local archaeological society catalogs everything, Rurik says. It seems the water around you grows hotter every second. We gave it all back, Mendoza says. Well, at least they took it back. You sigh and pinch the bridge of your nose. You feel your career fizzle out right before your eyes. At this point, you'll be lucky if you don't end up going to prison. Damn, why did you ever listen to Sonia? It's true, you say. When we found our vehicle and our associate's body, we discovered that everything we intended to ship to America had been taken. I even saw the chieftain of the clan holding the sword and wearing the diadem we recovered from the excavation site. The artifacts have been returned to their owners. Why then did they continue to attack? There must have been something else, Kala says. The sound of a Viking war horn resounds from outside the tavern. They're here, you say. Something slams against the front door. Everybody turns in unison to see the edge of an ancient axe blade jutting through the hard wood. The blade withdraws. Slam! It slices another hole larger than the last. Give them back what you have stolen, or we will all die, Kala says. She dashes behind the bar to find whatever cover she can. Make a barricade, Rurik shouts. Fight or flight takes over as nearly everyone in the tavern leaps into action, some to follow Rurik's orders, others to dive for cover. The 5 federal cops append their heavy table. Together, they push it against the entrance. The Axeman continues his assault on the hardwood door. More Draugr join the onslaught, blending their weapons, swords, maces, axes, into beating their way inside. Somebody screams and points at one of the 2 tavern front windows. A Draugr stands outside, rags and metal hanging from his mummified flesh. It strikes the window with a short sword. Glass explodes, tinkling on the concrete floor, invading a collection of potted plants resting on a narrow table next to the glass. The Draugr sheaths his sword and climbs through the window. One of the police officers fires, hitting the Draugr several times as it struggles over the window jamb. The thing convulses under a deluge of bullets that keeps coming. The other cops and some of the bar patrons stack debris, chairs, tables, anything they can find, in front of the entrance. A handful of people lean a heavy dining table up on end against the second window. The front door clatters off its hinges. The Draugr push their way through and go to work on the barricade of debris. Fear overtakes some of the bar patrons who, a few moments before were fighting, run for cover. The window Draugr, drawing its short sword on the move, stalks across the floor toward the cop who had shot it. The officer puts 3 more bullets into the creature before it reaches him. As the officer slams a fresh magazine into his weapon, the Draugr decapitates him with one clean slice. The thing turns on the closest victim, a woman hunched under the table, hands cupped over the back of her head. The Draugr pens the table with one hand and brings its sword down, dividing the woman's spine just below the shoulder blades. She shrieks as she tries to crawl, but her legs fail. The creature stabs her in the face. The door Draugr hack through the barricade, breaking furniture, throwing obstacles aside. Together they heave at the heavy dining table the police officers had placed, pushing it back a few inches. Rurik and the remaining officers fire at the window Draugr. It dances in a hail of flying lead. 3 more of the creatures crawl through the open window. Once inside, they pick targets. One attacks a middle-aged man wearing a Greek fisherman's hat. It draws and throws a dagger as the man turns to bolt. The dagger whistles across the tavern and hits the guy in the back. As he falls, he cranes his hands around, reaching for the thing that sticks out of his scapula. The other 2 window Draugr draw their weapons to attack the clearest threat. The cops keep the heat on with a continued volley of gunfire. Other than a few bullet-induced spasms, the creatures seem unfazed. They both strike at once, dropping 2 of the officers with synchronized blows. "Return what you've stolen from them!" Kala shouts as she reappears behind the bar, holding a double-barreled shotgun. She aims at a Draugr and fires both barrels. The thing's head explodes in a cloud of dust. The headless Draugr draws its sword and swings randomly in broad strokes. One of the creature's wild blows hits a cop, sending him skittering sideways with a slice across his upper arm. Most of the barflies hide in cover. A few of the braver ones counterattack with anything they can find. Table legs, wine bottles, dishes. With a final push on the appended table, the Draugr at the entrance penetrate the barrier, sweeping aside most of the debris, the table acting like a broom. They pour around both sides of the table in 2s and 3s. The battle escalates to fever. Policemen shooting, bar patrons bashing with chairs and makeshift bludgeons. A man swings a table leg like a baseball bat, crushing in one of the Draugr's heads. After suffering the blow, the thing can't seem to do more than walk in tight circles. "Give them back their treasure!" Kala shouts. You don't know how to help the situation. Kala keeps telling you to return what you've stolen. The Draugr have already recovered their possessions back at the Hummer. Then you remember something that happened in the underground mass grave. You recall the odd look Randall glinted at you as he investigated one of the bodies off in the corner of the chamber. You thought nothing of it then, only that he, like you, felt overcome by the significance of the find. Maybe it hadn't been jubilation in Randall's eye. Maybe what you had seen was guilt. You run away from the battle and mount the staircase, taking them 2 at a time. You make the landing in seconds. You hightail it to Randall's room. It's locked. It takes 6 solid kicks to send the door slamming inward. You start your search by appending Randall's drawers. All you find are clothes, deodorant, toiletries, a shaving kit. You move to the closet and tear through his pockets. Randall could have stolen anything, a coin, a brooch, even a human finger. You overturn the mattress and see a collection of equipment and books beneath the bed. You crouch and fling open cases. You find metal and heat detectors, log sheets, Randall's personal journal, a box of souvenirs, and paperbacks. You sift through the souvenirs and don't find anything but airport trinkets and tourist trap curios. What are you doing up here? It's Mendoza. He stands at the entrance, one hand on the jamb, the other on his belly. Blood flows through his fingers. The fight is out here. His words come in a thin line. He falls to his knees and leans against the wall. Mendoza, I'm gonna get you through this. He forces a smile. No, you aren't. I'm a goner. You are gonna make it. You go to his side and peel up his shirt to discover a wound that causes you to agree with his diagnosis. Hang on, you say. You snatch up a bedsheet, wad the corner into a ball, and shove it into Mendoza's wound. A feeble attempt to stop the bleeding. He winces. Hold this as tight as you can. I think Randall stole something. I have to find it. Mendoza fumbles for the sheet and issues a slow nod. You search, overturning boxes, rummaging through clothing, ducking into nooks and crannies. Gunfire explodes outside Randall's room. You wheel around in time to see Rurik backing down the hallway, aiming at something out of sight. Rurik touches off a steady stream of carefully placed shots as he backs past the opening. The Draugr chieftain advances into view. Rurik shoots the thing 4 times before his magazine clicks dry. The chieftain jabs with his longsword, stepping into the strike, the way he must have done during many battles as a living man. Rurik yelps, then moans as the chieftain twists the longsword. He pulls his weapon free and you hear a patterned thunk of moist tumors hitting the floor. Rurik's unspooling intestines, you imagine. "Find it," Mendoza says, still holding the sheet to his wound. The chieftain turns his sword on Mendoza. With a swift downward stab, he drives the end of the weapon into the top of your friend's head. Mendoza doesn't have a chance to scream before he dies. The chieftain steps toward you. You back away. You spot something you didn't notice before. The cylindrical case Randall used to store the maps. It leans against the wall, obscured by the TV cabinet. With a desperate shot of adrenaline, you dash past the chieftain for the tube and hook it up. You pop off the cap and append it. Out slides the maps and a rumpled up t-shirt. Something clunks, wrapped in the fabric. The chieftain closes in. You snatch up the t-shirt and fumble at it like a Christmas present. The chieftain raises his longsword. His mummified face, incapable of expressing anger, rage, or vengeance, stares at you as he leans into the strike that will end you. Just before he brings his sword down, you unwrap the item tucked into the t-shirt, a dagger, cankered with the wear of ages. The chieftain stalls in mid-blow. He cocks his head to one side and eyes the dagger. You offer it to him, unable to keep your hand from shaking. After a moment's pause, the chieftain snatches the dagger out of your hand and slides it into his mildewy belt. The Draugr turns away, boots grinding on the floor, and walks out of Randall's room. Overwhelmed, you collapse and put your hands over your eyes. You barely manage to keep from weeping as the Draugr moves through the hallway and clods downstairs. The tavern battle flags off when the chieftain reaches the landing. You hear footsteps and imagine the chieftain, along with the rest of his clan, stalking out into the frigid night. You move to Mendoza's side. He lies against the wall, eyes open, blood covering most of his body from a now dormant head wound. You leave him and walk into the hall. Rurik lies over a decorative table. A china pitcher that once rested there lies on the floor in shards. You head downstairs into a scene of apocalyptic devastation. The dead lie everywhere, draped over tables, curled on the floor. A man lies on the bar, his hand dangling over the edge into a wastepaper basket. All of the police officers have perished, their bodies scattered, some of them dismembered. Kala leans up against a wine case behind the bar, still clutching her double-barreled shotgun. She eyes you with such disdain that you have to look away. Someone weeps in the corner. You navigate the debris toward the voice. You find Robin sitting with her back against the wall. She clutches at a wound in her throat. You crouch down and put Randall's t-shirt, the one he'd used to hide the dagger, against the bleeding. She tries to say something. Pain stops her. "It's all right. You're gonna be okay," you say. You stay with her until she releases her last breath, a syrupy rattle. You collapse next to her, you stare across the carnage, almost wishing that you too had died in the fight. After what could be minutes or hours, your phone rings. You draw it out and check the caller ID. It's Sonia Foster. You answer.
I have to say I'm more than disappointed. I just got off the phone with Hildur Gerhardsen at the airport. He hasn't seen anyone from your party. Where are my artifacts?
You issue a fatalistic chuckle into the phone.
This isn't funny,
Sonia says.
I want an answer now.
You can't have your artifacts.
What?
They belong to the dead, you say.
Don't give me that conservationist bullshit. We're in this thing $250,000. Like I said earlier, you're working in a get-in-line industry. If you can't get those artifacts on a plane before tomorrow morning, I'm going to...
You drop the phone. Sonia prattles on, a high-pitched cell phone speaker diatribe. All you care to do is close your eyes.
We came to the shore where the colder wind blows, with our spades in our hands and our hearts all aglow, digging deep through the crust of the primitive stone, searching over the past yet unknown. Beneath the earth where the lifeless bones lie is a Viking's lost grave underneath the pale sky, a rusty retreat of the old and the torn. There's a force that's both dark and reborn. We unearth the restless dead, the shadows move, the sky turned red. From the slumber they rise tonight, their eyes burn cold in the ghostly light. The long night of the Draugr, they march through the mist with black in their eyes. Vengeance calls from the shadows when their swords unsheathe tonight. The township below in the path of the storm, in the shadow of phantoms is yet to take form. They'll come for the blood, they'll come for the gold, the Vikings of wrath fierce and bold. Over the hills where the war drums pound, there's a howling of wind in the lap of the sound. They'll essay to run and they'll essay to fight when the shadows fall on them tonight. We unearth the restless dead, the shadows move, the sky turned red. From their slumber they rise tonight, their eyes burn cold in the ghostly light. The long night of the Draugr, they march through the mist with black in their eyes. Vengeance calls from the shadows when their swords unsheathe tonight. The long night of the Draugr, they march through the mist with black in their eyes. Vengeance calls from the shadows when their swords unsheathe tonight.
For this song, I picked the lively time signature of 6/8. I like this signature because it sort of romps a song forward, giving it momentum and spirit. Often I take a more metaphoric approach to the lyrics. I decided to be direct on this one. There's no mistake that this song is about Vikings coming back from the dead and rampaging all over the living. After all, What better subject could one write a song about? I gotta be honest. At the end of every season, I think long and hard about continuing the podcast. I produce all these episodes myself, including composing most of the music. I do enjoy it, but sometimes wonder if it's worth the effort. You can help by sharing the podcast with friends. Maybe share your favorite episode. Get them to subscribe. I have decided to greenlight a 5th season. That means I'm planning to roll up my sleeves, produce 13 new episodes, and see how it goes. If the show grows, I'll stick around. I'm going to take a couple of months off to get a jump on production, but don't despair. I won't leave you hanging. I'm going to let the freestyle Gargoyles take over for the next few episodes. If you aren't familiar with the Gargoyles, it's a group of guest authors who come into my studio and read their work to a fully improvised soundtrack by a live band. Make sure you listen for me. I'll be on bass. These are great authors and musicians, and I love these intra-season episodes. Until I return, I encourage you to be creative. Write, paint, compose, draw, work on an old car, whatever it is you can do. In a world where art is quickly being overtaken by AI, we need as many human voices out there as we can get. Until next time, I bid you sweet dreams, or should I say, sweet nightmares.
This has been the Terrifying Lies podcast. Please come again. You're welcome here.